So today, JD Vance, the Vice President of the United States, of which I'm sure you're all familiar, hosted Charlie's show and had lots of very interesting things to say. But more specifically, what's been making the rounds is this clip. I know you've probably seen it many times on this network already, but it is again true to the point where it's worth repeating again and again and again. How do you respond to individuals, depraved individuals, who are responding with such hatred in response to Charlie's death? Well, this is a good example. This is, again, Vice President JD Vance on the Charlie Kirk show. Watch this.
There is no unity with people who scream at children over their parents' politics. There is no unity with someone who lies about what Charlie Kirk said in order to excuse his murder. There is no unity with someone who harasses an innocent family the day after the father of that family lost a dear friend. There is no unity with the people who celebrate Charlie Kirk's assassination. And there is no unity with the people who fund these articles, who pay the salaries of these terrorist sympathizers, who argue that Charlie Kirk, a loving husband and father, deserved a shot to the neck because he spoke words with which they disagree.
There is no compromise with evil. You must destroy it. That has been the sentiment of everybody on the conservative side of the aisle, and even some people on the left side of the aisle. Bill Maher specifically just comes to mind when he roundly condemned any of the idiots out there celebrating. But the point that JD is trying to make, how in practical terms does that actually work? Well, give you a peek into my own household. My wife has followed the news. Obviously, I tell her about the things that I'm doing day to day, but, you know, just like any other wife, she's not exactly the most attuned to every single thing going on. And I know some of you wives out there who are watching this are. Maybe it's that she's in a different stage of life. We've got a toddler. The house is busy all the time. We've got a newborn on the way here momentarily. But basically, the bottom line, what I'm trying to reiterate is she doesn't follow the news all that often. But on Wednesday, something changed. And I would argue that it's a change for the better. We have lots of friends. We have lots of liberal friends, like I've mentioned on this show before. And so many of them sent well wishes and nice messages and condemned, some of them did, condemned the horrific reaction on people that they vote with on the liberal side of the aisle. But what this looks like practically, at least in my household, is my wife decided, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. Now, there's certain ways that you can get to people. Sometimes you need to have a relationship with someone in order to be able to bring them into the fold. And sometimes that actually works. There are several people that I can think of that we started off not agreeing on politics, and nowadays they are just as much as radical right-wing extremists as we are. There are success stories out there. And sometimes, time to cut people loose. What JD Vance was saying is there is no unifying, there is no compromise with people that are too far gone from saving. I'm not saying they are too far gone from being saved, but from us as individuals, the relationship that exists between us is so damaged, it is beyond repair, and at this point, there's no point to continuing that relationship. Again, what it's looked like practically in my household is that my wife, who generally, as she's scrolling through social media, would just kind of ignore some of the things that her friends who don't agree with her have said of, yeah, that's just them, that's how they think about things. Well, she no longer can ignore them, and I'm proud of her for doing that. She no longer can say, oh, that's just them, they're just talking. Now, it is an immediate confrontation, albeit social media, so it's not as aggressive as it might be in real life, or just flat out blocking people. There is a point where a person can only be redeemed by God or their relationship with Jesus, and we're just out of the picture. Now, that's not to say that the door is entirely closed, because it never is. Everybody can repent, and you should be able to forgive those people. But at this point in time, in so many cases, there is no need to have a relationship with someone, not because they disagree with you politically, but because they glorify the assassination. They celebrate the murder of someone who, like JD Vance said words they disagree with. Because that is Charlie's only crime. I'm not even calling it a crime. I'm just telling you the verbiage that they've used. That is his only crime, disagreeing with someone. And for that crime, he was murdered in cold blood. There is no unity with someone who celebrates that. There is no coming together with a group of people who thinks that is a good thing. And like the vice president said, you cannot unify with those folks.